Toastmaster, Madam President, fellow Toastmasters, and distinguished guests, good evening.
Good evening.
Tonight, when I was trying to work on my topic, A Salute to Leadership, I used several sources, online and books, for my material. And one of the sources that I used was About.com. And I wanted to get a good definition of what leadership was. And About.com states that leadership is someone who has the art of motivating a group of people to act towards achieving a common goal. Another definition is also that a leader is the inspiration or the director of the action. He or she, in other words, is the person that possesses the combination of personality and skills that make others want to follow his or her direction. FreeDictionary.com defines a leader as the position or office of a leader, the capacity or the ability to lead a group of leaders, guidance or directions. Nothing much there. Another source describes leadership as the process of social influence in which one person can enlist the aid and the support of others in the accomplishment of a common task. Now, these are great definitions of leadership, but it still didn't give me exactly what I was looking for. So I decided to look for some examples of leadership. I looked at people such as Susan B. Anthony, who's the pioneer of the women's suffrage movement. And because of her input and ability in the creation of the 19th Amendment, it gave women in the United States the right to vote. I also decided to look at leaders such as Mahatma Gandhi, who was renowned for his doctrine of peaceful protests. He was also the leader for the fight for independence with India against Britain. And of course, I looked at our own Dr. Martin Luther King, who was the leader of the civil rights movement here in the United States. And while all of these people exemplified great leaders, it still didn't give me exactly what I was looking for. So I decided, well, I'll look for the qualities of a great leader. The first two that I looked at were the greatest leaders almost in history, and that was Jesus and Moses, because they demonstrated self-sacrificial love for the sake of their followers. I looked again at Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and I discovered that they displayed vision in their struggles for equality. I looked at George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, and history tells us that they displayed courage in their struggles for equality and for leadership. Clara Barton and Mother Teresa, they demonstrated compassion in serving the poor and the needy of the world. I looked at Henry Ford and I looked at Andrew Carnegie, and these two leaders used innovation and they used creativity to create the Industrial Revolution, which changed the face of this entire country. And I looked at Ellen White and John Wesley, religious leaders who exemplified humility while leading their churches. And while all of these definitions of leadership were great, I was looking for something that would bring what I was looking for, my definition of leadership, a little closer to home. So I decided to look around in my own environment. And I discovered what I truly believe exemplifies great leadership. I discovered leaders that are so passionate about saving our youth that they've implemented mentoring programs to help them. I discovered leaders that are not afraid to holler loud and spare not and let our kids know that drugs, gangs, and guns do not define them. I discovered right here in my own backyard leaders who, because of their love for youth, go daily into the trenches of the public school system, not only to teach but to mentor the next generation and to lead by precept and example. I discovered leaders who constantly encourage us to set higher goals, and while doing that, they're humble enough to decrease themselves and allow others to increase and to take on leadership roles. I discovered leaders who challenge us to become more technologically savvy and also to take control of our own financial destinies. I discovered leaders who mesmerize us by their literary presentations, and time again, they transport us out of our seats and give us a glimpse into the lives and struggles of some of our Black pioneers. I discovered leaders who challenge us to become environmentally responsible so that we can leave something for the next generation. Leaders who never say no when asked to assume a role. I've also discovered leaders who educate us about government policies and procedures, and they also encourage us with stories about their own acts of faith. And leaders who, by sharing their stories, teach us that hard work, and by hard work and perseverance, that we can climb any hill, no matter how high. I discovered the kind of leadership that sees you going in a direction, and they come to you and they say, okay, I see where you're trying to go to, and they give you a gentle pull, and they say, I've been where you're trying to go, so I can help you. So you have one leader giving you a gentle pull, and another leader that sees you and gives you a gentle push. So now you have one pulling and one pushing. So what happens? You can do anything at this point, but you can't go backward. So all you can do with this kind of leadership is to go up and up and up and up until you achieve your goal. Leaders, I've discovered, who through their grit and determination took on new challenges, and they've shown us how to put aside our fears and to try new things also. And I'm talking about leaders who, though very soft-spoken, and their presence, they only bear a smile, it's the best encouragement you've had. And I'm talking about leaders who, though not competing themselves, will come out and encourage others as they try to reach towards their goal. Do any of you know the power of just a simple pat on the back? I'm talking about leaders who, through painstaking research, constantly feed our thirst for knowledge. Leaders who challenge us to improve, to become organized, and who offer us tips on how to do this. Leaders who've even taught us how to dress for success, and who constantly challenge us to think out of the box and not to accept the status quo. Now, recently, we celebrated the New Year, and maybe some of us celebrated New Year's in our house of worship, or at home with our families, or with our loved ones. And some of us have a tradition of maybe popping the cork at midnight. I don't know about you. Well, it's in the processing that goes in this bottle. And it's through that processing that the force is built up, that once we unpop that cork, propels that beverage out of the bottle. It's the power that causes that beverage to burst forth. And I hope if those of you that did pop the cork, or those of you that can see it in your mind, can see what I saw. And that's simply that the kind of leadership that I'm seeing for 2010 is the kind that causes visions to become manifest, the kind that causes new businesses to come into fruition and burst forth, and the kind that causes new mentors to step forward and take their rightful place. This is the kind of leadership that I'm talking about for 2010. I'd like to give you a quote from a site called CoachThee.com. And it says that everyone can learn to lead by discovering the power that lies within each one of us to make a difference, and being prepared when the call to lead comes. And another quote is by Alan Keith of Gentech Corporation, and it states that leadership is ultimately about creating a way for people to contribute to making something extraordinary happen. So when I salute leadership for 2010 Toastmasters, this time I'm not talking about Martin Luther King Jr., I'm not talking about Al Sharpton or Nelson Mandela, and God knows these are all awesome leaders, without whose contributions we would not be where we are today. But when I salute leadership for 2010, my fellow Toastmasters, I salute each and every one of you, leaders in his or her own right. My fellow Toastmasters, I salute you.